Hey there, this video is going to be now on CAS Checklist 2.1 Algebra Basics. So we were left off with getting the basics, getting ready with the TI in the previous video. And in this one, we're going to start a new document now. We're going to train the idea that, okay, we've done something. Checklist number one was done. Let's start a new document. So I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to start a new document, okay? And they asked if they wanted to do any other saving to any of those changes. I'm going to press yes, okay? And we can always go back to that later on. So I'm starting a new document now. And again, I'm going to do add a calculator, all right? And maybe I should call this. I'm going to save this file. Again, file, save. So you can do Control S as well. So I'm going to save this document and I'm going to call it checklist. What did I do? Document, file, save, and I'm going to call this checklist. Checklist number 2. Okay, 2.1. There we go. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing it for the sake of showing you that this is checklist 2.1. We're going to start off by solving equations now. So normally we will try to solve x squared plus 11x equals 8 by hand. So I'm going to do solving equations. We're going to do this first one. And what they want us to do is to give exact values and then give 3 decimal places. So my previous video would have changed our settings. So let's see now. I'm going to go to solve. Now you can type solve on this funny keyboard over here, or you can go menu, and I know the shortcut, so 3. So you can actually notice it's number 3. You can actually press number 3 on your keyboard. So menu 3, and then solve is number 1. So you can press number 1 over here, and it'll be solve. Okay, so menu 3.1 is solve, and I'm going to solve for x squared plus 11 times x. Notice I put the multiplication in between the 11 and the x, okay, to tell the calculator that 11 and x are actually different. Equals to 8, and then for it to know what we want to calculate, we want to solve for x, a comma. So comma's just next to the O on the bottom there, on the bottom left, x. Okay, close the brackets, or you don't have to close the brackets. But if I press enter now, because it's an exact value in my settings, then my answers are in exact value as well. Okay, so looking at my exact value there, I can see that my answer is then x is either equal to, you got the negative of 3 root 17, but because that's all in brackets, so that's minus 11 all over 2, or you can have it equal to 3 root 17 minus 11 over 2. So that's my exact answer. And if we wanted giving decimals correct to 3 decimal places, again, press Control Enter. And that gives me now 3 decimal places. We know it's 11.684. So I'm just going to copy this. I can't be bothered writing it. And I'm just going to go over here and paste. And it's right there. There we go. Ooh. Maybe I'll make this set as background picture so it doesn't get affected. And there we go. So 3 decimal places. Obviously, then we only want it to be negative 11.685. And this one would then be 0.685 as well. Okay. But there you go. So that's how you would solve menu 3.1 is one that we can do. Note before, I know I might have mentioned it before, but notice that I said 11 and x. In between it, I made sure there's a time symbol. And the reason why I do that is because when you're dealing with parameters, the computer or the calculator does not know that letters are different numbers. So for example, if I had 3ab, so 3 times a times b, yeah? So those are 3 numbers there. But if I just wrote 3ab plus 4 is equal to 10. Actually, I shouldn't do that. Let's say plus 1 equals to 9. No, 10. Then if we were to solve this, if I asked you to solve for b, right? Actually, I should do it this way. Equals 9. Just makes it easier for you, right? If I asked you to solve for b, okay, find what the value of b is, what you would say to me, so I'm just going to write it over here so you can see, 3ab. If I said solve for b, you would then say, well, normally to get rid of this 3a, you would divide both sides by 3a to balance the equation, because that's all times. Then 3a divided by 3a is 1, and so b is equal to 9 over 3a, right? But you see, what happens if I actually do this now? If I actually didn't put the time symbol in between and I said, I want you to menu 3, 1, solve for 3ab equals 9, and I tell it to solve for b, watch what happens. You can see how it can't isolate the b, because a and b, it thinks that it's the one value. But we know the answer should be 1 over a, or 9 over 3a, right? So the mistake the students do here is that they didn't put the multiplication symbol between the a and the b, because it's needed. A and b just means a times b. So if I do that now, watch the difference in the answer. See, b equals now 3 over a, because if we simplify this, this is 3, this is 1, so it's 3 over a. And that would be the correct answer. Okay, so that's why it's important to get in the habit of putting multiplication symbols in between numbers, but especially with variables. Those are the key parts. Okay, I digressed. So let's go back to our problem again. So here we go. Let's go back to our problem. We are now up to solving approximately decimals, which we've done. Rearranging formulas we haven't done, but let's solve this one first. Okay, so I'm going to go to, again, menu 3, 1. Okay, so solve, and I'm going to do 2 times x squared. Notice I put the times between the 2 and the x. Minus 3 times x equals to negative 2. Where's the negative? This is the negative button right here. Okay, so under the 3, there's a negative button, not the take away button. Okay, so that's my negative 2 there. If I press now, and I need to tell it what to solve, so I'm going to say comma x, solve for x, so comma x, and then press enter, and it says false. Okay, and this essentially just means it's impossible to solve this problem where it's going to equal to negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to write here, false, whoops, not possible, unless I type something wrong, 3x squared, no. That is correct. And then next one, rearrange S. So we are now up to rearranging formulas. Now it's the same thing. We're going to use the solve function. So what I did up here before was I was actually rearranging the equation so that you get B. So now problem over here, they might want us to rearrange S equals UT plus half AT squared and make A the subject. What that means is solve for A. Okay, rearrange it so you have A equals to something. So if I were to do that, again, menu 3, 1. So menu 3, 1. I want to solve for S is equal to, all right, U. Now remember to put the time symbol between the two variables, U times T. If you don't do that, it's going to be wrong. And how do you do the fraction? Control divide, okay, gives me the fraction symbol. So 1 over 2 times A times T to the power of 2. See what I'm doing there? I make sure I have the time symbol in between each of the variables, and then comma A, because I'm saying solve for A. Rearrange it so A equals to something, right? Press enter, and you can see it's rearranged. A is equal to 2 times the S minus T times U, all divided by T squared. That is how you rearrange. Okay, so you don't have to do it by hand. You can do it on a CAS as well. So I've just taught you how to rearrange formulas. Up to the next one over here, we're now going to solve simultaneous equations. And simultaneous equations, really the purpose of it is to find the point of intersection. So say I want to solve for these two. When do they solve for x and y? When do they intersect? Well, there are two ways to do this. Many ways to do it, actually. One of the ways that you can do it is you can do, again, menu 3, 1. You can solve. Now, to type those two equations, you can actually just type y equals 6 times x minus 2, and then press the space bar, which is down here, next to the z, space and spell out the word and, A-N-D, space, and you can write y equals to 7 times x plus 5, and you can write here, comma, x, comma, y, and that works. So they know that you're solving for equation 1 and then equation 2, they know that. So the word and is actually a function. Sometimes that takes a bit too long or maybe it doesn't look as neat. Another way to do it, again, menu 3, 1. You can actually get 2 lines of entry. So press this button over here. This is your most frequently used function is what it is for. So it's kind of like what do you use quickly most of the time. So here I've got the brackets here and it's got those 2 entry boxes. If I click on that, what that means is I can now put 2 entries. So I can now say y equals to 6 times x minus 2, and I don't have to write the and word, and I can just literally write y equals 7 times x plus 5, move my cursor across, okay, and then I can do comma x comma y, and it will give me the same answer. Okay. Alternatively, you could also go to menu, algebra, and then there's solve systems of equations. So menu 3, 7. And then under that, you can solve systems of equations or linear equations, up to you. Okay, so systems of equations, they'll ask you how many equations you want. In our case, we've got 2. Our variables, well, clearly x and y. It could be more if you have more equations, or a, b's, and c's. And I press enter. It does exactly what we had in the middle step. And again, you could go y equals 6 times x minus 2. And on the bottom, y equals 7 times x plus 5. And you press enter, and it gives you the same answer. Okay, so there are three different methods there, but I usually use the middle method. You can use either one. Okay, so we've just now ticked off solving simultaneous equations, and in this case here, we now know x equals -7 and y equals to -44. All right, on to the next few skills: substitution, defining functions. You might have seen me in my first video using defining functions to show you why we do the add problems. Substitution, this is all based on defining functions. Okay, so I'm going to quickly show you here. Say you got this question here, substitution. Now, you can do this. Substitution of x equals 7. Okay, so find out what the value of y is if you know what x equals. If you know that x equals 7 and you sub 7 into all the x values, you can do that. But what happens is this is what you end up doing for each and every one of the questions. You'll be doing 7 squared minus 11 times 7 plus 32, right? Gives you 4. And then you have to do it again for 2. You got to do it again for a minus 3, and then do it again for y cubed. It takes too long. The quickest way to do it is using what we call defining. Now, we're used to seeing y equals to the function, right? So x squared minus 11x plus 32. Instead of that, I want you to get used to using function notation. So here we go, menu, actions, number 1, and then define number 1. So menu 1, 1 is your shortcut. And I want you to use f bracket, x, close brackets. Okay, so this is saying you've got a function, and in that function it's going to have x variables. Okay, so I'm going to press equals here. So equals just right next to the trig button over here. That's where your equals button is. And let's do it. So I'm going to do x to the power of 2 minus 11 times x plus 32, right? I'm going to press enter, and it says done. So what this does now is that it knows that every time I type f, see how it's bolded? Is because it knows that this is the equation I'm working with. So what am I replacing the x with? I'm replacing the x's with a 7 because I'm substituting over here. Notice it says x equals 7. So in that case, instead of f bracket x, it's f bracket 7. What that means is I'm now substituting 7 for wherever all the x's are. So if I press enter, notice the answers are the same. True? So that means for the next one, this is much easier. F of 2, because that means x equals 2, substituted the in to this function. So if I press enter, it's 14. So now I know this is 4. This is 14. So if I want to do the next one, x, I'm going to replace that with a minus 3. So here we go. We're going to go over here. I'm going to type f bracket a minus 3. Okay, so what that means is wherever all the x's are, I'm going to replace it with a minus 3. If I press enter, this is what I get. You see, it saves you time from actually typing it over and over and over again. You can just substitute it in. So here, same thing, f of y cubed. Whoops. And that is my answer there. So y to the power of 6 minus 11y cubed plus 32. Okay, so that's how you, what I essentially just taught you there is how to utilize the idea of defining a function, which is very useful, which is this step here. I'm just going to screenshot this just so that you know this is the section that I'm doing. Okay, so by defining the function, it makes your life so much easier instead of typing it all over again, instead of typing 7 squared, instead of typing, why is it like this? Instead of typing 7 squared minus 11 times 7 plus 32, and this one, instead of typing 2 squared minus 11 times 2 plus 32, it takes too long. It's much easier if you defined it in the first go, and then you can literally just type f of 7, f of 2, f of a minus 3, f of y equals y cubed, and they'll solve for you. Okay, so that's the benefit for solving substitution problems. So you can have a go with this one too. Have a go with this one. Same idea. Define the function. So define this, and then find what f of 1 is, f of negative 5, f of a, and f of x plus h. Okay. And the last 2 skills or 3 skills, factorizing, expanding, completing the square. So a lot of you who've done quadratics before would be familiar with this. Normally, we would do 2x times 7x, 2x times 3, negative 5 times 7x, and negative 5 times 3. You can actually do it on your CAS in one go. So menu, algebra, which is number 3, and then expand is number 3. So notice that there's factor there and solve there. So these are your 3 things that you normally use. And then notice there's also complete the square there too. Okay, we're going to do expand first. I'm going to expand my brackets at 2 times x minus 5. Open brackets again, 7 times x plus 3, and press enter. So my answer there is 14x squared minus 29x minus 15, right? Factorizing, same thing again. So in menu, go to algebra, so number 3. So press the number 3. And then factor, which is number 2. You can press number 2. So menu 3, 2. And I'm going to factorize 33 times x squared. And notice, make sure to put the time symbol in between, just as a good habit. So 62 times x minus 35. And here I'm meant to put comma x to tell it to factorize in terms of x, or the variable x. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to press, after you do comma x, I'm going to press enter, and it factorizes for you. It's 3x plus 7 and 11x minus 5. Okay, and then it wants you to now rewrite this equation by completing the square. So normally completing the square, remember you have to take out the 2. You get x squared minus 6x plus 23 on 2. And then you have to complete the square of that, right? It takes too long. You can again go to menu, algebra, number 5, which is complete the square. So menu 3, 5. And you can do 2 times x squared minus 12 times x plus 23, comma x. Okay, so you're telling it to complete the square in terms of x. I'm going to press enter, and it's now converted into a turning point form. So you got 2 bracket x minus 3 squared plus 5. Okay, so this has now been converted to a turning point form. All right, so that is all the skills for algebra basics. This is what you'll likely be using a lot in methods. So it'll be good practice for you to get used to the define, expand, factor, and complete the square. Thank you again for watching, and remember this is checklist number 2.1. You can start practicing on the next page.